Yeah, kind of butchered that a little bit, but whatever. I am pinch hitting for Kevin Bohannon tonight on Best of the West, along with Jake Thomas. We have a big show for you tonight. We're going to talk about the what went down in week 2. We're going to look forward to week 3, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's changed in our perceptions of teams moving forward. How you doing, Jake?
Doing good, man. Hope everything's well with Kevin. And he's gonna be in our thoughts going forward. But glad to have you step in tonight in his absence.
Yes, yes. I'll try to do the best I can, but I don't know if I can fill those shoes. We're going to miss Kevin this week, but maybe he'll be back next week and everything will be good.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Let's start off with Pittsburgh and Tennessee. I mean, it's a game that I called. I picked last week Pittsburgh to cover because they're kind of the UCLA of the East Coast, a
Yeah,
bunch of super seniors and upperclassmen. And Tennessee's a young team that's depth challenged, and even some of their good players are new players. They did fight, and they might have found a quarterback in Hendon Hooker that Joe Milton might get Wally pipped. But Pittsburgh kind of took care of business, and I don't see a path to Tennessee getting bowl eligible after this game.
yeah, and that's the reason why I was so high on Tennessee's because I thought, we everybody across the nation pretty much thought they had to win this game to get bowl eligible, and I was like, well, their backs are against the wall. They've got to fight and fight hard in this game to win. They did put up a good fight, but it seemed like every time that they would score, they couldn't do anything on defense to stop Pitt from scoring. So they've got to shore up that defense, and it's going to take a little while probably for them to get it back to the olden days, as I call it. But man, it's just and like you said, there are some positives because Hooker looked like he's going to be a stud. But man, it's got to be heartbreaking for some of the Tennessee fans out there this week.
Yeah, it means they have to beat Vandy in South Carolina, and then they have to go get somebody like Missouri or Kentucky,
Mm.
or I forget who the second team from the West they play is. Ole Miss or Alabama.
Alabama, yeah,
Yeah, no, that ain't happening.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Tennessee's not quite there. They were trying to get to 6, and this is a little bit of a roadblock. Auburn 62-0 over Alabama State, one AA school, FCS. We're not really going to talk about that. South Carolina 20-17 winners over East Carolina. I took East Carolina and 2.5 points, and then South Carolina wins by 3 and just rips out my pick hard. Um, the
Yeah.
GA is 2-0 on the year. I like what they're doing. They probably don't have the horses to compete like we'll see this weekend against Georgia. But they should be proud of their 2-0 and you know just work forward.
Yeah, I don't see them having any kind of prayer this week. I mean, it seems like the luck is going to run out this week. Georgia's a stout team. The GA's done his part. He's done really well, and I think they was down 14-0 and made a comeback. So they clawed their way back into it and made the last second field goal to win. So props to them. I'm as a shot to get to 7 wins potentially, just because the East is kind of down a little bit. Besides, of course, Kentucky looks like a one that could challenge on Vandy. So there's a small glimmer of hope, but at the least, they could get 6 potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a chance they could get their 20 victors over the South Florida Bulls. Anthony Richardson looked like he tweaked his hamstring on a long run. That's
Hmm.
good for the Crimson this week. If you try to run the ball against Alabama and don't have a passing quarterback, that's a recipe for an L.
Yeah, and it's tough to run against Alabama, period. But it seemed you saw it week 1. Miami tried to establish the run early, and it did not go nowhere. I mean, they went for it on 3rd and 7, or ran it on 3rd and 7. I just never, I questioned that move for them. But Florida, since Richardson might have hurt himself, it might be a different feel. But you know, there's going to start Emory Jones to begin with anyway.
Mhm.
So Emory just can it just not impressing me right now. So they're going to struggle. I mean, they gave up 20 points to South Florida South Florida. So that is not impressive. The defense is not impressive at all. So I think Alabama covers this week and wins big time.
Okay. Texas A&M 10-7 victors over the
Mm.
Colorado Buffaloes in an ugly, ugly game. Zach Calzada fumbled on about the 1 inch line. Made up for it with a nice touchdown pass at the end. They got the W, but on the last show we talked about this with the Biscuits and SEC guys. I think Texas A&M might be in a little bit of trouble because Haynes King is not due to be back until after Alabama.
Hmm. Yeah, and when he went out, that offense just stalled. And I mean, their defense is stout. And I don't really know how good Colorado's offense was, but the defense showed up and showed out Saturday. But that offense, um, Nick come in and it just seemed like he could not gel with his receivers. The timing was off. He was throwing errant passes. It was just awful. They couldn't establish a run. So if Haynes King is scheduled not to be back till after the Alabama game, that's going to hurt them real bad in that game, I believe.
Yeah. Georgia and UAB. Georgia a 56-7 winner. Georgia handled UAB the way that we thought Alabama would handle Mercer.
Yeah.
Unbelievably impressive game because UAB has a fairly stout pass defense in particular, and they threw with a backup quarterback all over them en route to a 56-7 win.
Yeah, that was impressive. Is there a quarterback controversy at Georgia now? You think, or you think it's still JT
No,
Daniels?
no, it's going to be JT Daniels because they tried the Stetson Bennett thing last year.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well.
So yeah, UAB. I'm high on Bill Clark, but he just don't have the talent to match up to Georgia. So he's done a lot with that UAB program, but he just don't have the talent and the guys to compete at the next level with guys like that.
Yeah. Alabama 48-14 victor over FCS Mercer. Arkansas with a
Oh
40
yeah,
to 21 win over Texas. It was a game that Arkansas just kind of took it to them. They didn't really need to throw the ball. It was impressive. It's hard to imagine that just 3 years ago, Arkansas was the laughing stock of maybe not just the SEC, but college football. And now they're ranked. They came in this week. They're number 20 in the country, and they deserve it. So
yeah.
good job for Sam Pittman.
Absolutely. I've been high on Sam Pittman since they hired him, and I thought it would take a couple years for him to establish his guys down there. But boy, he's already changed the program and changed the culture down there quick. And they bought in Saturday night, and they took the ball and they ran all over Texas. It seemed like Steve Sarkisian had no answer for them, and I mean, and his defense just looked silly at times. So, congrats to Arkansas. It's a big win for them because, like you said, they were the laughing stock for a while because everybody went back and watched that North Texas game when they just butchered that punt, to them. So it was embarrassing for a while at Arkansas.
Yeah, it was bad. Good for them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
after the game, Arkansas, their hatred of Texas really showed through. The social media was fantastic right
Hmm.
after the game, and I saw horns down for about 3 days. Now I question if whenever we look ahead to week three, whether that they're favored by 23 points, whether they're
Yeah.
going to be able to cover that. But for that Texas game, I mean that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We was into it here at my house. Me and my wife were, and it was a joy to watch. It was kind of challenging because I was trying to juggle between that game and the Kentucky Missouri game. So both games were electric, though. It was good to see.
Yeah. North Carolina State lost to Mississippi State 24-10. The defense for Mississippi State was dominant. They got a special teams touchdown. The offense, there's still going to be problems right now. They're not there. It's not quite ready. They're winning games on defense and special teams, and that's how they were able to pull this game off.
Yeah, that was kind of shocking because a lot of us picked NC State just for the fact that their offense, I mean, they're not great by means, but they're really good on the offensive side of the ball. But they could not get anything going. So kudos to Mississippi State. They probably needed that one, to have a chance to get bowl eligible because it's going to be tough the rest of the way for them.
Yeah, really, it really is. Kentucky and Missouri, kind of an electric game. It goes down to a
Yeah.
fourth down conversion by Connor Bozelek that he wasn't able to convert. 35-28 victor. Was it Craig Rodriguez? Rodriguez had a big game for the Kentucky
Hmm.
Wildcats, and Kentucky's stat line looked like last year's Kentucky stat line. It wasn't the new passing Kentucky stat line. It looked very much like last year.
Yeah, but Will Levis looks like he's you know a different specimen than Wilson was, if back last year. So that if they do have a passing attack, if they can, sustain and keep their passing attack with Will Levis, I think they have a chance to upset Georgia. It's a long shot, but they've got a chance. They got a good team around Mark Stoops right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this as it goes on, but people don't realize how close we are to chaos. Absolute chaos in college football.
Hmm.
Georgia or Alabama loses the game and wins the SEC championship, and we have a scenario that will make 2007 look mild in
Yeah,
comparison. That's all that has to happen.
yeah,
Just the winner of the SEC championship game be a one-loss team. That's
yeah.
all that needs to happen. But it's pretty cool. Austin P a 54-17 loser to Ole Miss. LSU beat McNeese 34-7. So that any other notes from week 2 that you want to point out? Any observations?
Uh, you know, um, a lot of people in the media is like, well, Alabama won 48-14. That's just a typical day for them. No, it wasn't. Their offense struggled. The first couple of series for sure. We had a sack. We had penalties galore. We just did not look like an Alabama top offense. So we've got to get that shored up. I'm not really concerned about Florida, but yeah, they can come up and if we play like we did the first half, it's going to be a struggle. Now defensively, we're fine. And I've been saying that all year. We're going to be fine on defense because I think they only had like 39 total yards in the first half, and that was it. They come out in the second half, put up a couple scores, but that was a lot against the second and third string guys. But still, offensively, we've got to get rolling.
All right. Looking at the Western Division for Week 3, we start off with Texas A&M at home against New Mexico. It's a game that could be ugly for quite a little bit if they're not careful. Now, it could be a situation to where you game plan, find out what Zach Calzada does well, do those things, and you just kind of bounce back because New Mexico's not very good.
Right.
But if you're not careful, it could be another game like that Colorado one that you're having to win in the fourth quarter. But I'm not really sure which flavor we're going to get. I like A&M to win the game in this one. I don't like them to cover.
I'm with you. I don't think they cover. I believe they win, but you know, like I said, when Haynes King went out last week, that offense went abysmal, and it was awful. They can't run right now. Calzada look lost. Him and the receivers not on timing everything. So it was bad. So, like you said, maybe they can get that fixed this week, but I think that they still win, but it's going to be an ugly game, I believe.
Yeah, Alabama's at Florida. The CBS game, the game of the week. It's one of those games that's going to be interesting. I told the Biscuits and SEC guys we were talking about that. Alabama's 3 explosive plays from having 375 against Miami. Miami goes to Appalachian State, barely wins. They're not that good. They didn't. They put up a little over 400 yards against Mercer. I
Hmm.
don't know without explosives if the offense is quite as good as everybody nationally is predicting. Now, it's still 4 and 5 stars all over the field. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying there's still some questions on that side of the ball.
Oh yeah, it's all about timing. It's all about gelling together. Like I said, we had an early sack. The offensive line, we're still tinkering it a little bit. Jameson Williams last week, he had that unsportsmanlike conduct, which was a bonehead play. He got it's just mental things that got to get fixed up. But you know, Alabama needed a game like that because Saban talked about all week how practice was awful. So he's got bullet points this week to go after. And like he said after the game Saturday, if Alabama don't, if they don't have a good week in practice and they come out like they did against Mercer, they're gonna get shook. So he's got that to preach with the guys this week.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm going to watch that game, and I'm just curious of what Alabama's going to do. Todd Grantham in a Florida defense, you attack them vertically. You go after the explosives. If they dink and dunk them, that's playing into the Todd Grantham system. So that's something to keep an eye on. Bryce Young needs to take shots in this game, and Todd Grantham does not need them shots to work.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a back and forth game for a little while, but I think Alabama comes out on top.
Yeah, too many 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah.
Let's go up to Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium up there. Arkansas is favored by 23.5 over Georgia Southern after a massive emotional victory. They beat their big rival because whether people will admit it or not, the biggest rival for Arkansas is Texas. It's always been Texas. I've seen horns down 3, 4 days after the game on Twitter. Social media blew up with horns down and everything about that win. So I'm that 23.5 number that Arkansas is favored by, I'm a little bit scared of just because I assume an emotional letdown is about to happen.
Yeah, to me this feels like it could only be like a 14-point game. For some reason, I just had that feel. Just like you said, the emotion. They, they may be drained still from the hype, and their adrenaline just goes zaps to nothing in the first half, and they're looking at maybe a 10-3 halftime score probably. It just has that feel. So that line, man, that's a little high, I think.
Yeah, somebody is going to get up on Arkansas. They have trouble throwing the football. This is an excellent front running team. If they get the lead on you, they can protect it. But I want to see what happens if they have to play catch up. And I understand that you were behind Rice in the second half. I'm not talking about Rice.
No.
I'm talking about Auburn. I'm talking about LSU. I'm talking about that because that'll determine whether or not they're an 8-win team or if they're a 6-win team. Because I think they're a
Right.
6-win team right now.
I do too. That was a big win for them to make that step to be, a 6-win team. They needed that just like Tennessee needed their win, but they didn't get it. But Arkansas delivered, and they took their step in the right direction to be a 6-win team this year.
Yeah, and they got that crazy schedule this year.
Oh man.
Is absolutely nuts. We go up to the Liberty Bowl. Mississippi State going to face the Memphis Tigers. Mississippi State favored by 3 points. It's a 4 o'clock Eastern kickoff, 3 o'clock on ESPN2. Oh, saw Mississippi on ESPN2. They got the state game, and then follow right behind that is the Ole Miss game.
Nice.
They are winning games right now on defense, and they're winning games on special teams, and they got waiting on the offense to catch up. And I think the offense will eventually catch up. It probably won't this year, but it's starting to flash a little bit. You're starting to see that Will Rogers is starting to get it.
Yeah. Memphis, that game to me is kind of like a trap game for Mississippi State because they had a big win against NC State. That Memphis, they're traditionally they're an attack type offensive team. So if the defense doesn't show up, it could be a blowout for Memphis because they score in bunches. So um, right now I have Memphis winning the game outright.
Ooh,
I
okay.
just haven't. I'm just not impressed with Mississippi State's offense yet. Now their defense is really good, and like you said, special teams looks really good so far. But eventually, people's going to quit kicking to you or do these low liners that bounce for 40 to 50 yards, and you can't get a returns. So I just you eventually your offense is going to have to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a good ball game though.
Yeah.
Auburn is up in Happy Valley, and College Station or College Park or State College, Pennsylvania. That's what it's
Yeah,
called. State
State
College,
College. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State is a 6 point favorite. It's going to be on ABC. It's the night game. It's a whiteout. And what Bo Nix is about to discover is how much the SEC on his helmet, how much teams get up for that. Because this is a normal game that if Auburn was playing a 10th ranked LSU or Auburn was playing a 10th ranked Georgia or whoever, you would look at this game and it would be fairly, but Auburn would have the emotional upper hand. That is not going to be the case Saturday night.
No, it's. I think this is about to be a rout. Penn State's defense looks legit this year. They held Wisconsin to 10 points, I believe. I mean their defense looks really good. So that crowd is going to be electric. It's a whiteout. I mean all the momentum is going to be for Penn State, and Bo Nix, historically is not that good on the road. So if he's not at Jordan Hare, he's not that good. So you got to give Tank and let Tank run, and hoping he finds some holes if you're gonna have a chance. Because if you lean on Bo Nix this week, you're gonna lose, and you're gonna lose bad.
Yeah, and Mike Bobo's old style football system, because let's not mistake, he's doing things that were done in 2004 and 1997. That's what Auburn's offense is. It's to be a little bit different than everybody else by being old school football. Well, you're playing the exact wrong team from the exact wrong conference to run that system.
Right? Yeah. It has the potential to get ugly, I think.
Yeah, I'm interested because they beat up on some weaker teams.
Right.
I want to see what they can do now that this is kind of set up that way, and they've got Penn State this week. Central Michigan is down in Tiger Stadium. Central Michigan is a 19.5 point dog. They were only 14 points to Mizzou and covered, by the way, earlier this year. They're a pretty good football team. I don't know why. I think 2019 is the reason that they're getting so much love when it comes to these lines, but this isn't 2019. This feels like free money.
Yeah, it does. So that's gonna be a good game. My audio cut out. Which one are you talking about? I lost my.
Central Michigan and
Oh,
LSU.
yeah. That's Central Michigan looks like they could come in and upset LSU. It So 14 points. Yeah, give me Central Michigan all day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And then we close out with Tulane going to Oxford to face the Ole Miss Rebels.
There we go.
If Ole Miss needs to win this game, Tulane is good enough to beat Ole Miss. They're a good G5 team, but Ole Miss can win this game. That sets up a game of games in Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. Now, Alabama has a game between now and then. Ole Miss has a week off going into the Alabama game, and Matt Corral just looks like the best quarterback in the country.
Dude, Matt Corral is killing it right now. He looked really good the other night. Um, are you worried about a trap game here just
Oh
because
yes,
Alabama's coming?
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that line is what 14.
Yeah, Ole Miss by
Yeah,
14.
yeah, man,
The
that's
over the over under is 75 and a half.
wow,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
dang. I still go ahead.
40 to 35 would go under.
Yeah, that's insane. It could be a shootout. I mean, Tulane gave Oklahoma all it wanted, and
Yeah.
come within a half a yard, completing a fourth down play, which they would have, probably was they in field goal range, I think, to
No,
kick
no, no. But if they'd have gotten that
yeah.
first down, they were
Oh
going
yeah.
to score because
Yeah.
Oklahoma could not stop them at that point.
Yeah. Right. So, it's a who knows situation there, but 40 to 35 and that's under. That's insane. And 14 that it does have the feel of a trap game, but I think this Ole Miss team's different than, and you always gonna have one game where you start out slow or you don't look good. Alabama just had it against Mercer. I hope we're done with them. This might be y'all's, but Lane Kiffin's got these boys ready to play, and I know he's going to get them ready to play in 2 weeks, against Alabama.
The
So
funny thing against Austin P, the Ole Miss team ran for over 300 yards, and
mhm.
Lane Kiffin's just fuming, talking about how badly the offensive line played, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, he learned that from Saban. This is
Oh
this
yeah.
is this is all mind games and playing that in the media, but he's just acting mad all over because Ole Miss ended up with like 650 yards of total offense, and the starters
Yeah.
came out like the second or third drive of the third quarter. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty crazy. I mean, Ole Miss has a pretty legit team.
They do.
They might be the second best team in the West from what
Probably
I saw
so.
early, especially with Calzada being out, because I expect
You
somebody to
mean you mean
get
King? King being
yeah,
out.
King being out and
Yeah.
Calzada
Yeah.
being in.
Being in.
I
Yeah.
expect somebody to get them before Alabama, and
Hmm.
then Alabama's going to get them, and that's going to throw their season into a tailspin.
So who do they play before Alabama? I don't
Let's
remember.
let's see. I'll bring it up real quick.
Okay.
Oh, I'm at Aggie Yell. It just took me to Aggie Yell. 1 second.
You good?
They've got Arkansas and Mississippi State.
Arkansas can get them.
Arkansas can absolutely get them. That's the 3:30 game on
Yeah.
CBS.
Arkansas can get them. Mississippi State, that'd be a good game now since Haynes is out. But
That could end up being like a 10-7 game. And what's with all
oh,
these low scores in college football this year? It's absolutely nuts, except for
it
Ole
is.
Miss.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Everybody talked about this new style of offense, but now you still having these, you know, 10-7 games, 14-10, 17-10s. You still got a lot of low scoring games out there. So, you know, I'm still a firm believer that defense still wins championships. So, that's just my opinion. I believe it only takes a good defense one stop on well, we saw it last year with Ole Miss. We
Mm.
finally got a stop and y'all kicked the field goal and it was it.
Yeah,
So,
one bad snap and that game was over.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but that was going to be that was going to be a 70-69
Mm.
shootout the way it was going, and then y'all had that snap. But man, it is incredible. But yeah, Arkansas can sneak up on A&M, and Mississippi State has the potential to. So they could lose 3 or 4 games now until potentially before King gets back.
All right, and
Hmm.
before we get out of here, let's talk about for a second what has changed. What has changed with our perspectives with SEC football this year? I know we had an idea of what all this would look like, but what through 2 weeks has changed?
To me, not much, honestly. I still think I talked about Alabama's offense is going to take a few games to get rolling, and it showed it. You know, it kind of makes me wonder. Like you said, Miami game they look really good, but then Miami struggled against App State. So that kind of makes you wonder really how good the offense is. Defensively, we're fine. Just got to quit getting injuries. I've also said that Kentucky would be second in the East, and they took pretty much they took second spot to the other night when they beat Missouri. They just got to beat Florida, and right now I think they're better than Florida just because I'm not sold on Emily Jones. Georgia looks like they're the walking dog on the eastern side, which they have been for a while. Depending on how the game against Ole Miss and Alabama goes, you're gonna have either Ole Miss and Georgia in the SEC championship game, or you're gonna have Alabama and Georgia, and and it's very possible that they're both undefeated going in, which means the loser can still get that fourth place spot in the playoffs potentially.
Yeah, it looks like an interesting season in college football.
Hmm.
I think Texas A&M, the big change that's happened is
Hmm.
they went from the obvious number two in the West to maybe somewhere in 3 and 4. They're
Yeah.
stacked at the other 21 position. They look like Alabama, honestly, at the other 21 positions. The problem is just that quarterback position now,
Right.
and that's going to jump up and bite them because other teams have that solved. Arkansas is better than I thought they'd be. They're running, they're doing the Kendall Briles thing. I mean, Ole Miss and Arkansas are mirror images of each other right
Yeah.
now. Ole Miss might just has a little bit better quarterback play, and that is why they're probably separating. But that's that rematch of that disaster game in Fayetteville. That's coming up in October. I want to see a Manning cast of Ole Miss versus Tennessee. I
Yeah.
want to see that desperately. And I'm ready for Ole Miss and Alabama, but we have to get past this game first. You
Yeah.
have to get past Tulane first because Tulane's good enough to beat us if we're sloppy and have penalties. No, they're absolutely good enough to beat us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. Like you said, Tulane's a really good team, and if they would have just converted that fourth down, they would have took down Oklahoma. So they don't sleep on Tulane. They can sneak up on you, and like you said, penalties, unforced errors, stuff like that. If Ole Miss does that early, y'all, you could be losing at halftime potentially. So
Yeah.
you gotta be careful there. I'm still wanting to see really where it all places out on the West. Pretty much the East. You're going to have either the combination of Georgia, Kentucky, Florida, or Kentucky. You can change them to out Missouri, or some Missouri may get that third spot if they can beat Florida. But on the West, you have Alabama's pretty much a clear number one. Now you have maybe Ole Miss as number two. Now, like you said, three is wide open. I mean, Auburn could step up to be that team, that third place team now if they can find an offense. Everybody's like, oh, you put up 62 points. It's Alabama State. Calm down, and you also look good against who was the team they played the first week that wasn't nobody either. So
Akron.
yeah, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what you do Saturday night. Now, if you go in to College Park, like you said, and beat Penn State and blow them out, then I'm going to be impressed, and I'm going to say, hey, you may be the third best team in the West. But other than that, Arkansas could be number 4 now. I'm just not sold on LSU yet. I think Max Johnson's a really good quarterback, but they got other problems. You know,
LSU sneakily could be number 7 in the West.
absolutely, absolutely.
That is something that could actually happen. There's
Yeah,
5 SEC teams ranked in this week's AP Top 25, and not one of them is LSU.
I know that's crazy. So it makes you wonder. And I hate to say this, I'm gonna get a lot of people mad at me, but it makes you wonder how much Joe Brady meant to that team that one year.
Yeah. Dave Aranda. How much did Dave
Oh
Aranda
yeah,
mean to that team?
absolutely. Dave Miranda was an amazing defensive coordinator, and yeah, once they lost them guys, it hadn't been the same since.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. So
Absolutely. I think
yeah,
we are going to call it right there. Anything you want to add?
no, I'm good, man, and enjoyed. Thank you for stepping up for Kevin and his little situation. I hope everything gets resolved there. So appreciate you talking to you tonight, Stephen, and thank you for all that you do right here.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it, bud.
Mhm.
You and Kevin and everybody else help make this channel go. So
Mhm.
I definitely appreciate it. But for Jake, I am Stephen Willis, and this has been Best of the West right here on Positively Ole Miss. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.